Hello and howdy. Hearing some horn action there from Scott in his background.
City
right
living. You gotta love the city living. Yeah,
he's right in the heart of Denver there, and right before we started, it's just map, map.
Yeah. At least there's no siren. Well, we've really lucked out the past, I guess, few dozen times we've recorded these podcasts, whether it's Front Range Hockey or the last one. Like, I'm surprised there hasn't been sirens. That's a big problem I have. They've come by, it seems, at the top of the hour every hour, but they've managed to be quiet on all the days we've recorded. So,
well, and
I say that now, knock on wood. Watch this be like the one time there's like there's gonna be like 100 sirens, but whatever.
Hey, we had some cars honking, so we've already started off on that.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yeah, we've filled our quota for background vehicle noise, at least.
Yeah, I
fingers
hope so.
crossed. But yeah, no, I get it. I live right down the street from a fire station. So, I mean, you could definitely, I don't know if the mic picks it up, but sometimes sirens go by when recording Front Range or Calder Farmstead or whatever. And so I totally get that. But anyway, interesting introduction to the show.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. I'm CC Hawkley. And what's your name again?
I'm Scott McDonald. That's what the people call me. Yeah.
Yes, that's the people, the general public.
Yeah.
Yes. Kind of. I know your real name.
Yeah. It's actually a fun fact, I guess, now that we put that out in the world. On my birth certificate and my driver's license, my name is Scotty. Scotty. So that's a fun fact about me, but I go by Scott. Seems a little more professional and an adult, I guess.
Yeah.
But, I know my mom and dad are listening to this, so I love the name. Thanks, guys.
See, and it's the opposite for me. So my first name is actually Chad, and I go by CC as a nod to my father, because my father's first name is my middle name. So I've done that for a long time. It was a nickname that kind of a spiritual mentor in my life gave me a long time ago. And I'm like, CC Hawkley, I like that. But it was something that I did to kind of differentiate myself when I was a kid, because my dad's email address was chawkley@aol.com, old school. And mine
dated yourself a little bit there.
Yeah. And dated him for sure too.
Yeah.
But my email address used to be, well, and it was, even when I was a kid, CC Hawkley. And so it's like, CC is my nickname. So there you go. Now you know. It
rolls off the tongue nice. But yeah, wow, you guys just learned a lot about us on what is this, episode 12 of
episode 12. And by the way, this is episode 12 of the Front Range Hockey Podcast. We're recording on a Tuesday. We're going to be dropping it. Well, we're going to be dropping it right after this. We're live here on YouTube. We've got a couple listeners. Thanks for listening in. Appreciate it. If you guys want to chime in on the chat line, you're more than welcome to. We'll get that in here. So, but yeah, episode 12, we're going to be, I guess it's for the 30th, 31st, somewhere in there. But yeah, it's Tuesday, it's Wednesday. We're covering it early because, Scott has some, a prior engagement that he has to take care of tomorrow. And so, yeah, you got to learn a little bit about Scott and myself. And now we're going to talk Colorado hockey, because I mean, that's what we do. Front Range Hockey Podcast. Let's do it. First and foremost, let's talk about the Avalanche, as we normally do. Scott, his main beat these days, has dabbled and more than dabbled with the Eagles and Denver Pioneers last season, but this season he is an Avs man. He is totally an Avs man.
That is right. That's what's getting the clicks these days. So
I
put in my time on the Colorado Eagles beat. That's kind of what what made me, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Enjoyed my time there, and I'll still write there, every once in a while. But it seems, especially this season, the games are coordinating like just perfectly for like the same Avs schedule. So it's like it's hard to watch like the Avs game if I'm covering that, and also the Eagles game at the same time, and then to hop on both Zooms simultaneously, obviously doesn't work either. So.
No.
It is an Avalanche side at the end of the day that I cover for, sir. So that's my main beat now.
And Scott, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, I can't cover every Eagles game. Like a lot of us in the business these days, unconventional media, through the internet, through a website, we have day jobs. Like we have our 9-to-5s, quote unquote, as it were. And so to cover it as a credentialed journalist these days, you can do it. And people, like Adrian Dater there at Colorado Hockey Now, where you're at, they made a career out of it. But with technology these days, people can get into the business and be credentialed journalists as a second job, or if you want to put it that way, so a lot of people do it pro bono. Some people are making a little bit of coin doing it, which is, thankfully I can do that now. And I know you can as well. Mm-hmm. But for I was thinking about it the other day, and we're having a lot of sidebars, but hey, we're going to have episodes like this and I'm okay with it. I was thinking the other day that there are a number of different outlets out there. I'm not available to cover every Eagles game, but you've got the Rink, you've got people like Marie Sexton, that, Aaron Goldschmidt. And you've also got, a lot of different, just a lot of different outlets that cover the Eagles. Of course, I'm brain farting now that I'm bringing it up, because the only one that came to mind was the Rink.
DNVR, Mile High Hockey, whatever.
There we go.
Stick to our sites, hopefully.
I think Ryan Clark of The Athletic. I mean, I know he's going to be covering the Kraken now, but he was.
Yeah. Oh, it's Peter Baugh now at The Athletic.
There we go. It is Peter Baugh. Yeah. That's right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So anyway, we have so much good coverage, and it's we're quote unquote competition, but Scott and I are technically, I guess you could call us competition, but this is a market that we are together as a group of, professionals that, we're here to cover the Avs. We're here to cover the Eagles, and we're here to cover the collegiate teams in the area. And we do it for the love of the game. And it's great that when I have a night off or Scott has a night off, other people step up to the plate, and that's great. It's not something where, it's like a sports team where, if you go down, you got to be careful because someone else is going to step in and just knock it out of the park. It's, it's not that competitive, kind of spirit of, upward mobility. It's at least not with me. It's I'm grateful for the other coverage, Yeah,
I know, for sure. I get what you're saying, but yeah, there definitely is. I mean, I'm a competitive guy by nature, so there definitely is, part of me, if, someone gets a story or a scoop that I didn't get, or I'm busy and couldn't, get to it in time. It wasn't the first person posting it. It does kind of, eat away at me a little bit, but
sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's life. We have full-time jobs, and, I try to do the best I can, but sometimes you have to sleep, and sometimes I can't afford to post a story every single day, although that's the goal. That's what I want to do. But unfortunately you gotta have some mental health time as well, and some personal time, and some space away from jobs. All work and no play makes Johnny a dull boy, or whatever. So yeah. It is good that we do have some pretty good coverage, some pretty good outlets here, and there are people that this is their full-time job. So
right.
Go to The Athletic if you want coverage every single day, and the Mile High Hockey has a bunch of, as my former outlet, and they have a bunch of writers on there too, so they're usually hitting something every single day, and that's great. But for a lot of our small publications, we're the only guys on these beats, so sometimes we can't get to it, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. And if you do tune in to Front Range Hockey, the people that are listening live right now, we're going to bring it. We're passionate about our work. We're passionate about our craft, both written and in podcast form. So stay tuned. And if it keeps us interested, it's not going to be bullshit for you. That's one of my favorite phrases. So there you go. Yeah. So yes, Avalanche. We spend a good 8-9 minutes talking about random stuff, and that's what differentiates us. We're not going to just be, cold cutted, all right, we are robots, we are talking hockey, but hey, let's talk some hockey. We're going to do it with passion. We're going to do it with some vigor, as it were. So Colorado Avalanche on an 11-game point streak, and only 3 of those games are the loser point in either overtime or a shootout. So pretty good. Thursday, March 25th, Colorado 5, Vegas 1. What a game. Not quite I mean, you win by 4 goals. I think that constitutes a bit of a partial blowout, at least. And then
I'd say so, especially with a team like Vegas,
sure.
They're the top spot in the West. And anytime you have a 4-goal differential against one of the teams that are expected to compete with the Avalanche for the Stanley Cup, then that's pretty damn good.
Yeah. And to go back the next night, and I mean, they ended up losing this game in overtime on Saturday, March 27th. Vegas 3, Colorado 2. Again, they get the loser point in that one, but then they rebound on Monday, March 29th, Colorado 5, Anaheim 2. They, we've talked about Philip Grubauer, ad nauseum, and just how much of a workload he can take. Everyone's concerned that he's going to get injured. We have trade rumors. We'll address that a little bit more in Asking the Feed, because they're starting to heat up yet again, even with the acquisition of Jonas Johansson, and rightfully so. But man, you keep putting up all of these goals. I mean, just looking at from earlier in the month of March, you have games like the 8-4 game against Anaheim and the 5-1 game against Minnesota, 6-0 game against Minnesota, 5-1 game against Arizona. And, it's like the Avalanche it seems at will. I mean, they don't do it every game, but man, you put up a 5 spot or a 6 spot on some of these teams. And, granted, Anaheim is Anaheim and, Arizona's Arizona, but then you come back and you can put a 5 spot and win by 4 goals against Vegas. I mean, Scott, what are you seeing out of these guys that can make their offense click so much? I know Mikko Rantanen, just to throw a name out there, he's having a bit of a career year in a shortened season. I mean,
yeah.
So
got his 20th last night Monday night, I guess. I think he's 3 goals behind Austin Matthews, who's got the lead. So I mean, he might be a guy that's fighting for the Rocket Richard Trophy if he keeps it up. But yeah, he's playing on fire now. I mean, it starts with that top line, to your point. Everyone's just firing on all cylinders. It's like when we see the Avalanche at their worst, we see the top line is the only ones producing anything. But we're seeing, I just wrote a story last night about how the third line is playing, just in my opinion, just as well as the top line. Scoring just a few fewer goals. But in general, I mean, they've scored 23 points in 11 games, like 11 goals and 23 points in the last 11 games. And, Coach Bednar said that he's probably been their best line in the 11 games they've been playing together. And I agree. Like, I mean, anytime you're getting kind of top line production from your third line, and that's huge. And I think that's been the big difference for this team is everyone's kind of firing all cylinders. Obviously, they have their confidence back. And, we've mentioned it a few times on this podcast, how confidence really is everything, like it is across all walks of life. Confidence is huge for performance and, sports especially. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing with the Avalanche is, maybe they're a little slow out of the gate. Obviously, the injuries didn't help anything. And, started off slow, kind of got in their heads being the favorites. And, they weren't living up to those expectations right away, but, they're stringing some wins together. I think it was like 7 or 8 wins in a row. And now, 11 game point streak that they're on right now. It's, they want to keep rolling and everyone's clicking. I think Coach Bednar's found his lines that he's going to roll with. And, there's no need to change any of those. Like everyone's looking good. Everyone's playing well together and, everyone's gelling. I think that's the big difference so far. And, that's why we're seeing such a good return by the Avalanche.
And I know we've talked about it in previous episodes, Scott, just the fact that guys like Logan OConnor, guys like Jacob McDonald, guys like Dan Renouf, you look at these current lines and all 3 of them are, and especially the defensive pairings, because, you've got just 2 guys on each pairing and it's only 3 defensive pairings. It's not like the forward lines where there's, 4 of them, but you have Jacob McDonald with Sam Girard. You have Daniel Renouf with Ryan Graves. And it's like, this is coming together. And it's like the depth that we have preached for the past 2 seasons, with the Eagles and with the Avalanche and just the, the prospects being developed up there in Loveland and then coming to the Avs. It's like, this is coming to fruition. And I know we've kind of beat a dead horse here, but it's really, just the chemistry. It's gelling, and it's amazing how these guys, given the opportunity, president of the Logan OConnor fan club, Scott McDonald, I mean, as unbiased of a journalist as you are, you give credit where credit's due. And I don't think just because you're presidency of the fan club, it shouldn't detract from that at all, because Logan OConnor, like you said, Pierre Maguire mentioned it on the national broadcast. that, you know, he's
doesn't get enough respect. Yeah,
exactly. He's the Rodney Dangerfield. He doesn't get enough respect. You know, it's like, yeah,
exactly. And it's like, I mean, anyone that's, especially me, like we just mentioned at the top of the podcast, like, you know, covering, kind of earning my chops and cutting my teeth at the in Eagles country. Like I got to see, you know, Logan OConnor from the get go, and how well he did in his couple seasons there. And then, yeah, it wasn't a surprise to me when he like stepped in the playoffs last season and played, you know, lights out and kind of earned some attention that way. And then now it's carried over right into this season. I think he's a guy that's earned a full-time spot. And yeah, to your point, like it's the depth, and it's a credit to what Greg Cronin and his staff are doing down there, developing some of these guys that are kind of stepping in and being huge key contributors for these guys, like the Jacob McDonalds and Logan OConnors that have, you know, saved this team at times. And it's just great to see. Like, I mean, when you have depth like that, you know, you can survive injuries. And like we've already seen it a little bit this season, how, you know, the Avalanche, they, you know, lost a lot of guys to injury. But it could have been way worse than it was. You know, they kind of patched up some of those wounds with some of these depth guys that are stepping in and, you know, kind of softening the blow a little bit. And that's huge because, I mean, and especially in a shortened season like this, you can't afford to lose, you know, 3-4 games in a row, or especially do that multiple times. So the fact they've, you know, only lost 1 or 2 games in a row all season long, before they start winning again is big. And, you know, again, that's another reason why we're seeing this team do so well. It's just everyone's kind of stepping in regardless of what their role is. And, again, like I said, firing on all cylinders, and it's awesome to see.
Yeah. And it's, it's crazy. Just, I mean, I feel like a broken record, you know, talking about the acquisitions that Joe Sakic has made, you know, bringing in Donskoy from San Jose, bringing in Nichushkin from Dallas, I believe, correct?
Dallas, yeah.
Yes. Okay. It's hard to keep track of stuff sometimes. The brain gets a little full, but yeah. And to have Tyson Jost, you know, those 3, you know, I just, you know, noticed that on the Twitter feed just now, your article that got, you know, posted in regards to the Avalanche's third line. You know, the focus on that second line, you know, with Kadri, Brandon Saad, and is it Burakovsky
on the second line?
Yeah, I'm having a brain fart here. Okay, yep. Again, brain's full. I'm second guessing myself, but but you know, we've talked about that second line and how it kind of lacked for a little bit, and it's cresting and trough, and you know, that kind of thing. But for, you know, to have a team where all of your lines can contribute and you know, do so on a consistent basis. Like you said, Scott, it's rough on the nights where that top line has to carry the club on their back. And then, you know, Landeskog and McKinnon and Rantanen all have to go see a chiropractor from carrying this team on their back, you know, and get adjusted, you know. So to have kind of a depth line like that, well, to have all the depth in those lines and to have guys that can bust their ass and work their asses off like a Logan OConnor and just everybody that I've already mentioned, you know, again, I feel like a broken record and beating a dead horse, but when you're on an 11 game point streak, I mean, you have to tout the positives, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's always kind of been the biggest, I guess, draw to the Avalanche. And, you know, why they're such a strong and powerful team is it's their depth. And, you know, the teams that go the distance in the Stanley Cup playoffs are the ones that can roll with 4 lines. And that's, you know, that's what GMs try to build. And that's what Joe Sakic has tried to build over the last, you know, 5-6 years, and has done so incredibly well. And I think we're all starting to see it kind of fructify right now. And, you know, it culminated at the beginning of the season when they were called the favorites because, you know, the bookies or whoever, the experts, the pundits, they all see the depth of this team. They see what the Avalanche have done over the last 2 years and like kind of their extreme rise in such a short span of time. And, yeah, I mean, they're fairly touted the favorites and, you know, stumbled out of the gate a little bit to start the year, but now we're starting to see that depth, you know, activate and contribute. And that's just building further confidence. And as each win goes by and as each point streak, you know, continues, it just adds to the confidence. And it's another tick on the box. And, you know, when teams rolling like that, and I mean, we can't forget about Philip Grubauer. We're talking about the forward lines, but also they have not made it this far without, you know, the Vezina Trophy caliber goaltending they've gotten from Philip Grubauer. And that's, you know, there's, again, just up and down the lineup. There's, you know, defensemen like Jacob McDonald. Obviously, we talk about the Sam Girards, the Cale Makars, Ryan Graves is pretty decent.
Devon Taves, you know.
Devon Taves, yeah, exactly. they're all great. It's like, I mean, just up and down the lineup. We talked about the forward lines enough, but the defense is incredible, and they're one of the best defensive teams in the NHL this year. And then the goaltending too. So all three main positions are playing really, really well, and that's all you can ask for, and just hope that they keep it rolling for as long as possible.
You talk about the best defensive team in the NHL. Let's shift and talk about the best defensive team in the AHL. And unfortunately, that's not the Colorado Eagles, but the Henderson Silver Knights, the Vegas Golden Knights AHL affiliate this year. By God, they are having an amazing season. They've only lost 3 times, and I believe they've got 13 or 14 wins. See, now I can't remember off the top of my head, but Henderson hosted Colorado over the weekend, and Colorado beat had a very convincing victory over the Henderson Silver Knights on Wednesday, March 24th, 5-1. That sounds a little familiar. Like the Parent Club had a victory the very next night, 5-1 over a Nevada-based team. A little bit of synchronicity there. It's kind of an interesting note. But alas, Friday, March 26th, Eagles fell down 5-1 and had to claw and scrape for 3 unanswered goals, but too little, too late. Eagles end up losing that one 6-4 after Henderson added an empty netter. Saturday night, Colorado pushed ahead 2-0, and Henderson scored 4 straight goals, 4 unanswered goals in the second period. And that was kind of a momentum killer. Like I said on Calder Farmstead last night when we covered this series, momentum has been a harsh mistress for the Colorado Eagles because they either are letting goals in early. We're talking the first minute, 2 or 3 minutes of the game, and then just, killing any sort of momentum that could be built by, going down 1-0 early on, or they're just letting up a litany of goals. And, Colorado's, their offense is good. Like their offensive production. I mean, when you score, 4 goals and 3 goals, and I believe now I need to go back to my other notes because I have that in my Calder Farmstead notes of, how well they're doing in regards to all the offense and everything like that. But the fact is that, Colorado is not lacking in the offensive categories in the league, but Henderson is just so damn good. And Colorado's defense is rough. And unfortunately, they left Hunter Miska out to dry on that Friday game. Connor Timmins, he got reassigned to the Eagles, and I saw him. He was blowing defensive assignments on a couple of those goals. And it's like, man, you hate to see that, especially with a guy that's trying to crack the Avalanche and not just be a taxi squad guy. And so, Avs sending him down to, up to Loveland geographically, but down to the Eagles, affiliation wise. And it was tough to see that. And it was tough to see Hunter Miska, especially after winning his, first 2 AHL games this season, having the difficulty he did with the quote unquote fan base. I use that term rather loosely because fans who bully a guy to the point where he deletes his Twitter, I very hesitantly call them fans, because they're not. And so, Miska, just the defense didn't do him any favors on Friday, and Peyton Jones was in net on Saturday. So it was just, it was I predicted a sweep from the Eagles because they were kind of trending in the right direction. But Henderson, I mean, their offense, their defense, and their goaltending is all just clicking in on all cylinders. Henderson is, in my opinion, the best team in the AHL right now.
Yeah, I would agree. And I mean, it's, you just kind of touched on it there a little bit too about, like Parent Club, like, Baby Club or whatever, how it was a very similar kind of score there, but similar, opening seasons that we've seen in this organization. Like the Vegas Golden Knights obviously went to a Stanley Cup final in their first year. Right. And now we're seeing, the AHL Henderson, Silver Knights, who in their first year are playing incredibly well. So interesting, I can't say enough about their, development team there, and their coaching staff and their respective general managers are obviously doing a great job of like building teams to be successful right off the bat. But they look really, really good, and they kind of had the pick of the litter, and they have some very promising prospects in their system, and we kind of expected this to happen based on what their roster looked like heading into the season, and it's happening. And with regards to the Eagles, we've talked about it quite a bit, but it's just tough when those Logan O'Connors and there's those Jacob McDonalds, Dan Renoufs, like the Eagles or the Avalanche are taking up a lot of those guys, a lot of the Eagles' top performing players, to again patch those holes in the Avalanche lineup with those injuries. And it's tough. That's tough on Cronin and his staff, and it's tough to develop that confidence and that camaraderie with a team when you're changing the lines all the time. And it's part of it's definitely part of the reason why they've kind of struggled to gain any momentum, because it seems like they have a healthy roster, and they have for a solid week or two they have their team where they want it to be, and then the Avs will call some guys up, or whatever else it might be. So it's tough, but the Eagles are hanging tight in there. They're not doing terrible. They're just very, very mediocre, maybe slightly below mediocre right now, but there's time. There's plenty of time. And it's not really about winning and losing, especially with development. Obviously, if you're an Eagles fan, it's exciting, as an organization to win, and you want to win. But I've had enough conversations with coaching staffs and even Craig Billington, and the general manager of the Eagles, and he's like, it's really not what it's about. Like, you obviously want to build a team to win, and Joe Sakic said it too, because winning, going deep in the postseason, it's obviously more games played for your prospects that you're developing. But at the end of the day, it really is about developing prospects. And you win, that's a bonus, but really we're just trying to get our top guys, a lot of minutes, while they're, I guess, developing into hopeful NHL products.
Right. And this year is such a unique beast, because you've got the taxi squad, and that taxi squad, I think every NHL team, or at least every NHL team that's worth their ilk in developing their players, they don't want to keep a player on the taxi squad for the whole season. Like, they want to be able to rotate them either up into the NHL parent club or down into the AHL affiliate. They want to be able to get these guys some playing time, either at the NHL level or at the AHL level. And so, in that context, you had Megna, Sherwood, and Burrows reassigned to the Eagles from the taxi squad before this Henderson series. But unfortunately, you also had, TJ Tynan called up, and so with him called up, you also, there was another guy that was called up too, and I've
lost track of all the taxi squad transactions, and it's because you never know which one's like a paper transaction, which one's like a salary cap move. I don't know.
Yeah. So Tynan got called up, and that's your leader. That's your captain. That's the guy that wears the C on his chest. So you had Tynan called up, but you had Megna and Sherwood and Burrows back, the former Bridgeport Sound Tigers defenseman and captain. So, you got that leadership as well from Kyle Burrows. But, after that, you had Connor Timmins reassigned to the Eagles. It was Tynan and Sheldon Dries. That's who got bumped up to the taxi squad. So you had Tynan and Dries up there. And then, the Eagles made the move where they had to bring in, some backup from the Utah Grizzlies on Monday. You had to bring in Travis Barron, and you had to bring in Ty Lewis. So, at least these guys are familiar with the affiliation system. They're familiar with the Eagles organization. The Eagles aren't just signing some, ATOs to guys that are, getting, reps in, some young 18, 19-year-old guys. The Eagles still have Luka Burzan, who did score his first professional goal over the weekend. So congrats to him. Nice. But, and you've also got Jean-Luc Foudy kind of coming into his own as well. So yeah, the Eagles, like you said, kind of a mediocre team currently. Let's see, they're 5th out of 7 teams in the Pacific Division, 16 points, 7-8-2. You got San Jose ahead of them with 17 points. And then it's like San Diego, 26 points in 3rd, Bakersfield, 23 points in 2nd. Gotta love that points percentage. And then Henderson is 15-3-0, 30 points. That's a .833 points percentage. As Sean and I call it, they are riding the PDO train. They are an analytics puck luck, just taking a rocket to the moon. I think they're like 106 or 108 PDO, which, if you're not familiar with PDO and analytics, it is your shooting percentage combined with your save percentage. And normally the normal rate comes in around 100. That doesn't mean that you're super lucky, or it doesn't mean that you got bad puck luck. So yeah, Henderson has been trending at 106, 108 for for God knows how long, pretty much the whole season. So they are just knocking it out of the park, not just on the stat sheet, but like I said, on the ice as well. When you got guys like Sakura, Thomas Yurko, I mean, he was all alone with Miska. I mean, it was a blown, it was a blown assignment as they tried to clear the puck out. The Eagles did, and Henderson just, one of the skaters shot it up to Thomas Yurko. And if you've got him one-on-one with the goaltender, he's going to deke that.
He's got some hands. Yeah.
He's got some. Yeah. I mean, there are, like Sean told me last night, there are YouTube videos dedicated to that man and just his sick mitts, as the kids call it these days. So,
what was he? Was he Chicago? Was he in the Blackhawks?
He was a Detroit.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I guess never worked out there, but
yeah, he was with the Chicago Wolves. So I mean, Vegas Golden Knights. He played Chicago Wolves. So, but you're talking about Blackhawks. Never mind.
Yeah.
I'm all AHL minded.
I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So, but yeah, real quick before we move on to the collegiate side of things, which we don't have a whole lot to talk about, but we still got a couple things to chime in on. But so here I am touting Henderson. So Henderson is third in the AHL for goals for 3.61. They are only behind Utica, 3.78, and Chicago. The Wolves are head and shoulders above everyone else, 4.53 goals for per game. The Wolves are just, they might be, Henderson and Chicago might actually be like tied for the top team in the league, but Henderson just continues to, even with guys getting called up and everything. But I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to say Henderson is still the top team in the AHL. Henderson is also second in the league in goals against per game, 2.17. And they can thank Logan Thompson for that. He played in South Carolina, got to see him when I was covering the ECHL, and he's just transferred those skills up to the AHL magnificently. I mean, he is just, I don't even have to look at his statistics because, the 15-3-0 and Thompson has most of those starts. You can go look on AHL.com and check that out yourself. But no, just, wanted to real quick. Colorado, fourth in the league in shots for per game at 33 even. And then they're also 10th in the league shots against per game at 28.76. So it's not like Colorado is a bad team. It's just like you said, Scott, they're kind of, mediocre currently. And the taxi squad and things doesn't help, but everybody's dealing with that. And last but not least, I called you Sean. Scott. I'm going to do that from time to time. They both start with S. So thank you, Scott. Sorry, Scott. Your name is Scott.
It is.
So, Scott, the power play for the Eagles. I know we've talked about how abysmal special teams is. I don't think it's a coincidence, and it's unfortunate because Ryan Tobler resigned pretty abruptly a few weeks ago. But ever since Brett Clark has stepped in as an assistant coach, the Eagles' power play has improved. They were in the basement for a number of weeks, 28th out of 28 in the AHL. They are now 16th in the league at a 16.9% conversion rate. And you can thank Wednesday night and Friday night because the Eagles have become the first team in the league this season against Henderson to post multiple power play goals against the Silver Knights in back-to-back games. Thanks to Brian McCormick, Henderson's broadcaster, for that little nugget and that little statistic there.
It's a fun fact.
It is a fun fact. I mean, and the Eagles, with how just in the doldrums their power play was for most of the season, now they're, in the middle of the pack. It's quite an improvement. And, did a change at assistant coach, mix things up a little bit. I mean, it's kind of correlating. I mean, I'm gonna.
It can either go one of two ways with those, mid-season changes that are abrupt like that. It's like either shake some confidence into the team, or it shakes some lack of confidence into the team. So
right.
Yeah, hopefully this is the sign. Things seem to be trending in the right direction. I know it's only been a couple of games since Tobe stepped down, but You know, hopefully it's gonna trend in the right direction. And I know the Avs are kind of stoked about the move because they are getting more of their like Avs development people into the coaching system with the Eagles. But obviously, it's sad to see Ryan Tober go, a guy that's given so much to the organization, has been there since the jump in 2003. Is obviously has his jersey number retired in the rafters, and moved on to set a bunch of records with the team, win some cups, and then to coach with him. So yeah, thank him for his service. But this is probably a good move that we have more NHL products that are now coaching NHL prospects in Loveland, and I'm sure the Avalanche are pretty stoked about that.
Absolutely. And okay, I had to look it up. Logan Thompson, his statistics are so great this season. I have to tout him a little bit, even though he's on the quote unquote enemy for a lot of the Colorado fan base. But Logan Thompson, know thy enemy. Second in the AHL in wins with 9. First in the AHL in save percentage, .944 save percentage over 11 games played. Wow. He is also second in the league in wins with 9 wins. Third in the league in goals against average. I already said wins, but 1.92 goals against average. He is 9-2-0. And why not throw a shutout in there as well? He's got 1 shutout too. So Logan Thompson, pretty damn good goaltender.
Pretty decent, yeah.
Yeah. So I did want to kind of touch on that to wrap that up and recap that. So anyway, all right. We've talked Avalanche. We've talked Eagles. The collegiate hockey season is in the postseason. We are now in the Frozen Four. We have, University of Minnesota Duluth against UMass coming up on April 8th. And we also have Minnesota State against St. Cloud State, representing the NCHC there out of St. Cloud State, Minnesota. So 3 of the 4 final teams in the Frozen Four tournament in the NCAA are from the state of Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes, and one
and elite team, hockey programs.
Fairly elite, I would say. Yeah.
At least they're amateur hockey programs. Yeah, the Minnesota Wild. We know how obviously the local Avalanche fans feel about that organization, and I mean it's hard to deny they have the best high school hockey programs in the world, and collegiate is not too far behind that as well. So they know what they're doing up there.
Yep. Yeah, they are. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. So there you go. Going back to Colorado, though, we'll get to the Frozen Four here in a second. Back to Colorado and their collegiate programs. Scott, did you see any Denver news? Denver, Pioneers? Because I haven't really seen much this past week in that regard.
It's almost like they're not playing anymore. Interesting, yeah. So they missed out for the first time since 2007. That's unfortunate, and I guess not really too much is going on with them anymore, but. I know like the NCAA West Regionals was being hosted in Loveland where the Eagles play, and that was fun. It would have been great to see the Eagles there, see the Pioneers there.
Sure.
But I guess the Eagles are there.
Sure.
But yeah, sadly it didn't happen. It was a down year for them, rough year. We could make up a lot of excuses, but we've covered that quite a bit. A lot of injuries. They lost a lot of key guys. A lot of seniors graduated the year before, and then just an off year. And yeah, we'll leave it at that. But I know, so actually, like Ian Mitchell and I think a Colorado College prospect actually both connected. So the Colorado College, what's his name again? He turned pro with Chicago, Josiah Slavin.
Slavin, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think Slavin just turned pro, played in his first AHL game recently. That's like this past weekend, I think, and then actually connected with former Denver Pioneers captain Ian Mitchell. They both scored their first point. So I think, Mitch Mitchell passed it to him and Slavin scored in like his first game. So kind of a cool connection. Like I know they fought over the gold pan for a few years, and now they're playing in the same organization for, I guess is it Rockford? And they both connected on their first point, which is kind of cool, a cool local connection. But other than that, that's the only thing I have to report on Colorado collegiate hockey news.
Hey, no, that's great. I had completely missed that. I'm glad that you brought that up. I mean, we even talked Chicago versus Rockford on Calder Farmstead, previewing and recapping that weekend with Andrew Rinaldi from the Sin Bin. And speaking of the Sin Bin, you mentioned the regionals up in Loveland. One of my former cohorts from the Sin Bin, Ben Holden, actually called on the play-by-play broadcast, actually called the games up there for the
Oh, nice.
For the NCHC. So kudos to Ben Holden and he just got an award for that, actually, for NCHC Broadcaster of the Year, I believe. So
wow.
So kudos to him. Congrats, Ben. If you're listening in, congrats. Yeah. But yeah, we're talking about DU, and you mentioned just, the season is over. There's not much news. Oh boy, Colorado College. More bad news out of Colorado Springs for the Tigers. So first, you had Mike Haviland mutually agreeing with the club to part ways a couple weeks ago. Well, now Colorado College is losing their captain. So their captain, their captain, Grant Cruikshank, is in the transfer portal. He was junior forward. He had a year left, but now he's transferring. And rumors say that he's going to Boston College, but that article got taken down by some Boston College reporters. So, I mean, if there's truth to it, I mean, can you blame the guy?
To go to, yeah, and that's always like the rough part about NCAA athletics, whether it's basketball, football, like hockey, it doesn't matter. Kids want to win, kids want the exposure, and when you're playing for a team that's just consistently kind of mediocre and especially had as bad of a year as they did. And I mean, he's going in on his last year of eligibility. So you can't blame these kids for leaving, but it's always kind of rough for the college fans, because it's just probably going to be another down year for them, losing some of their best players to the transfer portal. But yeah, like you said, you can't really blame him if he really is going to Boston College or Boston University. I mean, those are the places to go. Like if you want, some exposure and on a national level as far as college athletics go. Yeah, I can't blame him for that. So it's a good career move for him.
Now, on paper, if you're going to go from playing for a gold pan as opposed to a bean pot, you would think that, okay, gold pan, a little bit more illustrious, a little bit more lucrative, but sure. No, the bean pot for sure, going up there, either like you said, Boston College, Boston University, wherever he lands. I mean, if he's leaving Colorado College, there's got to be a better opportunity out there for him. So via Con Dios, Grant Cruikshank, and man, Colorado College losing their head coach and their captain in the span of a few weeks. That's a rebuilding program if I've ever seen one. So yeah. But anyway, I believe that's everything. I mean, we can check in on our boy Billy Christopoulos and see if he started a game for Hershey as of yet. Oh, look at this. Elite prospects, most recently with the Rochester Americans. Boy, did I miss that. So,
wow.
He is getting around, apparently.
It's a little promotion.
So, yeah. Let's see here. Okay. So, yeah, he's got, of course, his Indy Fuel stats here on eliteprospects.com, but then he's got blank, 0 games played for Henderson, 0 games played for Hershey, and now he's with Rochester, and that was a loan that was completed on the 24th. Technically, it's considered a loan because he is under contract to Indy, and so Indy has loaned him to Henderson, has loaned him to Hershey, and now he's with the Rochester Americans. So Air Force Falcons product Billy Christopoulos apparently making a bit of a home in the Northeast now, at least on call as a goaltender in need for, I mean, Rochester has been, go ahead.
That's all you can really ask for though. Just a chance. And yeah, to get a promotion to the AHL is big, especially just coming from, the Air Force Falcons program that really struggled. And all of a sudden in the span of, a month or like even less than that, maybe it's like, yeah, you're playing in the ECHL and now you're playing in the AHL. It's like, I mean, it's one step below the NHL, and that's pretty awesome for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that northern part, like pretty much all of New York, has just been hit so hard with COVID-19. But I mean, the Utica Comets are the only team in the AHL that have played single-digit games this year. They have only played 9 games, and they started with everybody else at the beginning of February. But they've had so many games canceled that they've only played 9. And Syracuse had a game canceled against Rochester recently. So it's like Rochester, Syracuse, and Utica. That in mind, maybe one of the goaltenders is out currently for the Rochester Americans. And so Billy Christopoulos gets the opportunity to step in when the Americans take the ice again. We'll see whenever the Amerks do, get to take the ice as a healthy team again. But yeah, Billy Christopoulos, Air Force Falcons. Good on him to keep getting these opportunities. It's a great thing, like you said. And real quick, I know it's not a Front Range hockey thing, but it is a collegiate hockey thing. So University of Minnesota Duluth, like I said, they made the Frozen Four. They played against the University of North Dakota, 5 overtimes, the longest game in NCAA history. And I have a tie. To the player that scored the game-winning goal, Luke Milamuk. The 19-year-old in his rookie season scores the game winner in that 5th overtime. His father, Jeremy Milamuk, is a Idaho Steelheads legend. He has his number hanging on the wall there at Idaho Central Arena in downtown Boise. But Luke actually grew up in Boise, Idaho, and learned while his dad was playing for the Steelheads, those 6 seasons that he played for Idaho. Luke actually grew up in Boise and learned to skate at Idaho Ice World in Boise, Idaho. And so that's a neat little thing. When I saw that Luke Milamuk, and I just interviewed Jeremy a couple 3 seasons ago. I interviewed all 4 players that have had their jerseys retired for the Idaho Steelheads. And I interviewed Jeremy Milamuk, and he's like, yeah, my son Luke's in the USHL right now, but he's committed to University of Minnesota Duluth. And so when I saw that, I lost my shit. I'm like, oh, awesome. Go Luke.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That was so cool. So the local Boise, kind of local Boise boy. I mean, he spent a number of years in his childhood there. So Luke Milamuk, and there's my loose tie, not Front Range hockey per se, but Boise Foothills hockey. There you go.
Yeah. Still like a mountain state. So
the Rocky Mountains are in there.
So it's Front Range. Yeah. We'll count it.
Sure. Front Range, just curving through Wyoming.
Yeah. Everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Last but not least, our favorite segment of the program, Asking the Feed. It's time to gauge the public's, not gauge the public's questions or opinions, but to take them and to answer them. So here we go. Friend of the podcast and full press NHL correspondent for the Carolina Hurricanes, Joseph Wills at hockey_jerseys. Reimer coming to Colorado. Trade a 3rd 2021 and a 6th 2022. Done. Proven starter, aside from remaining healthy, goaltending is the only other concern. Do you think Carolina parts ways with Reimer, especially with Peter Mrazek on the shelf currently?
Yeah, I mean, that's tough on their end of things, but yeah, I mean, that's definitely a rumor I've heard. I know Dater has heard that as well, and he's built up quite an army of sources, and I think he gets some pretty valuable information. So, if he's hearing that, then I have a comfortable saying that I think it's probably a legitimate rumor. And yeah, I mean, that's a guy that I'd be very interested in the Avalanche getting, and we'll see what happens at the trade deadline coming up. But I think, at this point, still just puzzling the Jonas Johansson move and that trade, because it seems like there might be another one on the horizon. It's like, I mean, why would you even, kind of waste that 6th round pick, which, Joseph Wills is thrown in the mix too, but could have saved that money and just made this trade, long ago. But now the price might be upped with Mrazek, on the shelf, like you said. But yeah, I mean, that's a guy I've heard had probably tossed his name around in the Colorado circles. And yeah, I think that's a fair trade. 3rd rounder at least. And then, throw in just a late 5th, 6th round. And he's a guy that, I'd feel definitely more confident and more comfortable, backing up Grubauer, heading into the postseason. But we'll see. I mean, it does feel like there's a trade coming down the pipeline here, and I mean, they're definitely going to need an upgrade from Jonas Johansson. I know it's not fair to judge him off of one game, and Bednar told us today he's definitely going to give him a couple more games, heading down, just to give Grubauer his rest. But so we'll see how he does there. Maybe it might be just a huge revelation that he has a career year with Colorado backing up Philip Grubauer, but we'll see. I mean, I think there's definitely a trade probably, in the works, and then we'll see what happens on trade deadline day. It's probably what I'd expect it to happen.
And Scott, if we're going to talk trickle down effect. If Jonas Johansson does stay on the roster and the Avs do pick up another goaltender, I mean, you have a trickle down effect to where, you can put Miska and Warner on the Eagles, and then you can also bump down Peyton Jones to the Utah Grizzlies, because Peyton, and I don't think Peyton Jones is the type to, especially in his rookie season. I know he signed an AHL deal, and I believe it's a one-way AHL deal, but he was in Utah Grizzlies training camp with the Grizzlies. So I don't think Peyton Jones would be opposed to bumping down with Utah for the rest of the season. Should the Avalanche acquire another goaltender, put Jonas Johansson on the taxi squad, maybe alternate him and Warner and Miska, and, continue that cast of characters so the guys can get some reps in. But if they do acquire another goaltender, I mean, that's your trickle down effect. It doesn't, it's not a make or break thing. And it's like, okay, well, who do we put in? If you want to put Johansson, I mean, he's a great AHL goaltender. So if you want to give him some reps with the Eagles, you have an opportunity to do that if you bring a guy like Reimer in. So anyway, I could go off, the minor leagues. I'm like, hey,
yeah, that's your thing. But I mean, it makes sense. Like I like what you just said there. Because I mean, you can never have enough goalie depth, and if the Avs did acquire somebody that could be a legitimate backup goaltender, and you have Johansson as, I mean, you have 3 AHL ready goaltenders in the system now. If they do make that trade, and like you said, use those interchangeably if need be, and knock on wood, given the Avs injury history, especially in the goaltending department, as we get later on to the season, again, knock on wood. Like, I don't want that to happen, especially the season Grubauer is having, but you never have too much depth there, especially with goaltenders.
Especially in this organization, that's for sure. Like you said, injuries definitely factor into that. So thank you, Joseph, as always, for your questions, my friend. Derfzuki at DERFZUKI on the Twitters. Assuming he remains healthy, can Makar push his production enough to be back in the mainstream Norris conversation prior to the end of the season? And why doesn't it seem the Avs get enough recognition out east for the other trophies as well? Adams, Richard, Vezina, etc. I mean, East Coast bias is a thing. Canadian bias, Toronto bias is a thing. It is what it is. It's going to be what it's going to be. And to comment on the Vezina, you've got Vasilevsky and Marc-Andre Fleury that are also in pretty hot contention for the Vezina as well. So there's that. But I mean, Scott, your thoughts on those?
Yeah, I mean, like the East Coast bias it's absolutely a thing. I know people don't like to hear that, but I mean, it's true. Unfortunately, when you have like all the original 6 teams over there, those are the teams that sell tickets. Those are the teams that the NHL always, consistently markets, more than other teams. That's what it is. It's like I work in marketing. That's you do what sells best, and you target locations that do really well, and that's what the NHL has been doing for years now. Whether it's Winter Classic games, outdoor games, the Avs are definitely getting up there. As far as getting some of these, primetime outdoor games, like we just saw them at Lake Tahoe, and they've hosted a stadium series now a couple times in the last few years. So they're definitely getting there, I think, and they're getting to be one of the more exciting teams in the NHL, especially with how fast and young they are, and you got the star power, and Nathan McKinnon, who's a perennial kind of Hart Trophy candidate. Obviously, the best top line in hockey. So it's a fun, marketable team, and they're definitely getting there. But it takes some consistency, and I think they'll definitely start getting some of that recognition as time goes on. But I mean, you're never going to beat those East Coast markets until you start going deep in the playoffs, and winning a cup. Like, obviously it would help, but the Western Conference compared to the Eastern Conference, you have Vegas and Colorado out west, and that's pretty much it. And then you got everyone else on the East that are doing a lot better. So it's just a market thing, and I hope, obviously, I think everyone hopes that they start to get that recognition that I think they deserve as we move. But it starts with winning, and I think, again, the Avs being the favorites, I think helped them quite a bit. But winning a Stanley Cup would thrust them right into the contention for a lot of those awards you just listed off. Namely, I would say the Adams, I think, is a very realistic one for Coach Bednar.
Mm-hmm. And Cale Makar, to kind of answer the first part of that question. I mean, the man has probably some of the best edge work. I mean, I saw Riker on on altitude saying that he has his skates honed down to the zillimeter, and it's just like, yeah, his edge work is just, oh my god, it's a thing of beauty. So
Yeah,
I mean, that's a no-brainer. I think if Makar stays healthy and contributes and does what Cale Makar does, there's no question he's going to be in Norris contention.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Yeah, I totally skipped over that, but I think absolutely he's probably, a top 3, top 5 candidate now. And if he keeps doing what he's been doing lately, I think last night had another 3-point night. It was +4, something like that. Like, I mean, he's consistently producing, and then he's also just, stats aside, that's not what it's like really about.
Sure.
He's just strong on his defensive assignments. He's one of the best skaters, probably maybe the best skating defenseman in the NHL, and he's only in his second or third year, full season.
Right.
It's, yeah, I think that's very fair. And, I think we're starting to see some of that, national attention and recognition. And, I think as the years go on, these guys will be kind of perennial, candidates for some of these awards that you just mentioned there. But yeah, I think Makar for Norris it's a reasonable one. I think he'll probably finish in the top 3 in voting. If not, top 2, maybe even win the whole thing. We'll see.
We shall see for sure. But like you said, it reminds me, it harkens back to the day of the championship Avs, the 96 team, the 2001 team. And when you had a guy like Joe Sakic and Peter Forsberg and an Adam Foote on the defensive end, of course, Ray Bourque on that latter championship team. But Patrick Waugh, when you have championship pedigree, I think that really brings credibility to your team. Like you said, you get a Stanley Cup, you get 2 Stanley Cups, then people's eyes are on the stars. They're on the McKinnons, they're on the Rantanens, and they're on the Landeskog's, and considering them for awards, like Cale Makar, Philip Grubauer, it's like, if they get over that championship hump, I think it makes it a lot easier. So just to dovetail what you were saying there. So thank you, Durf Zuki, for your question. As always, good questions from him or her or them, or, whatever pronoun.
Yeah. Can't never be too careful these days.
It's hard to know on Twitter too. So yeah. But thank you. Nonetheless, thank you for the questions. John D. Sullivan at West U Sooner. It sure seems like the Avs are vulnerable to being roughed up in a playoff series by a big physical team like Vegas or Dallas. Should the Avs add some size and grit before trade deadline, or just stand pat? Which is interesting because Liam O'Brien just hit waivers today, and he's kind of a gritty guy that can also put the puck in the back of the net and facilitate a little bit. So, I don't know what the story behind that is. Maybe he's just, I think he signed, I can't remember what deal, Liam O'Brien's, or what the details of his deal is, but kind of interesting that you asked that question on the same day where one of your gritty guys has been placed on waivers. But I mean, guys are on waivers all the time in this weird ass season for sure. But Scott,
yeah,
I'm talking too much. Why don't you take it?
I mean, yeah, like John, that's my biggest complaint about this Avalanche team. I think it's a lot of people's, complaint. Skill only gets you so far, but it's a man's game in the postseason. And, we saw them get roughed up by Dallas. Granted, they weren't healthy. Everyone wants to go there with that. But, part of the reason why they weren't healthy is because, they're maybe not tough enough as they should be to be a team that makes deep runs, perpetually in the postseason. So, yeah, I mean, I think they need to add some size for sure. They need to add, some grit, especially come postseason. I mean, last year, they just had, Nikita Zadorov, and, that was okay. But, he's not contributing much. And what the Avalanche need is, like you mentioned, Vegas, like a Ryan Reeves, a guy like that. They're so hard to find, but, a guy who can contribute in all 3 zones, a guy that's scary to play against, a guy that can, muck it up in the corners and, just all around intimidate and kind of go after those guys, I think is big. And it's something I worry about with, regards to this team in the playoffs. The Avalanche are they going to stay healthy? Are they going to be tough enough to beat a Vegas? Because I mean, they're no doubt going to play Vegas again, in the playoffs this upcoming postseason. So we'll see how that goes. They've gotten the better of them so far. They might be tied, I guess. I think they both have 3 wins, something like that. But it should be an easy matchup. I mean, they're the team to beat, in my opinion. as far as the playoffs go. I think if the Avalanche make it past Vegas, then they have a real chance to kind of do some damage. But you got to make it past Ryan Reeves and Mark Stone and some of those big boys that they have over there.
And I know that Dennis Gilbert was kind of brought in that Zadorov trade. And, he could be serviceable in that role. But, I mean, the name that keeps coming to my mind, I mean, you mentioned Ryan Reeves. And, of course, you can't mention Ryan Reeves without thinking of Tom Wilson. Of course, the Caps aren't going to let him go. But another guy that kind of has that same spirit, that same, shit stir as
Tenacity,
it were. Tenacity. Yes, that's a better way to put it and without being vulgar. But Curtis Gabriel, I mean, coming on the scene this season and just causing all the problems for San Jose. And granted, San Jose is not doing very well, but I mean, Curtis Gabriel is just he is that kind of Ryan Reeves-esque player. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's like, those teams that do well, that fourth line guy who, I mean, the Avs fourth line, they're okay, but they're small. You want a big boy on the back end, and I just don't think they have it. They have JT Compher, who's kind of mucking it up at the end of plays, but he's not necessarily an intimidating guy and loses most of the fight that he's in. But yeah, I mean, they're pretty small, and just in general, the Avs are kind of a small team, and they use their speed to their advantage, and that's about all they have. They use their skill to kind of evade these hits, but shit's ramped up in the postseason, and they're going to find a way to hit Nathan McKinnon. They're going to find a way to, attack a lot of these guys and get in your head in a 7-game series. And yeah, I think that's where the Avs really lack. And, that's what I'm most worried about when the playoffs start.
Don't be surprised if they do make a move at the trade deadline for a guy that can really, facilitate some, I don't want to say retaliatory.
Some drama.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way to put it. Yes, there you go. All right, final question. We got this from Scott's DMs. Somebody slid into Scott's DMs.
Yeah.
Question.
All the time.
Yeah, well, sure. Especially hockey-related stuff. Question for the Front Range Hockey Pod. Oh, and non-hockey too. Come on. Look at that handsome fellow.
I don't know about that.
Scott's like, what are you doing? Goddamn, Stop it. I'm like,
oh, God.
Oh, no.
My mom listens to this, Cece. You know that. Damn it.
And I'm sure she thinks you're just as handsome, Mr. Man.
She does. Yeah.
Question for the Front Range Hockey Pod. Do you think Avs power play will ever utilize Cale Makar as the man to catch the drop pass? Probably second fastest skater on the team and frees up an extra forward. That's Ben Hedman at Hedman Ben. HEDMANBEN. Scotty, what do you think?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think they've done it a little bit in the past. They'll kind of play around with using them interchangeably. Like, obviously, Nathan McKinnon gets the lion's share of those drop passes. And honestly, like, on an unrelated note, it's kind of one of those things that's why I think the Avs power play is kind of so mediocre compared to some of their other stats. Is it's just kind of dry. They've done the same play for the last few seasons, and I think people in their scouting reports, other opponents are catching on to that a little bit, and it's just grown a little stale and stagnant. But yeah, they've used Makar as the guy to catch the drop pass before. And I like to your point, I guess, let's use him maybe a little bit more and, see if you can kind of change it up, have Nathan McKinnon as the guy who's streaking up the wall, and then have, Cale Makar as the drop pass guy and take it down the middle, and then find, Nathan McKinnon in full stride. So, I mean, it's interesting, but I don't know. The Avs say they work on the power play all the time, but to me, it hasn't gotten much better. And McKinnon said today that he kind of got a little angry at a reporter about it, because that's the question on everyone's mind. I wrote a Scott takes on it, my column on Colorado Hockey Now, about it's like they're top 3, top 5 in so many categories, and you see what the outlier is. I think at the time it was like they're 15th or 16th on the power play, and for how strong and potent this, you have Sam Girard, Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon, like Gabe Landeskog, Mikko Rantanen, all on the ice at the same time for 2 minutes, on the man advantage, and you're telling me you're only scoring, like whatever percentage it is. Like, I think it needs to be better. And, Nate today was just like, I guess they're like 12th in the league now. And he's like, I don't know, everyone wants to talk about that, but we're like 12th in the league. It's not that bad. But I don't know. It's it definitely, if there's one area of improvement, and that's like, it's such a small, like, I guess, mark against them. Like they're obviously doing so well in every other category. They've got points in the last 11 games, but it's like if you are looking at those outliers on the stat line, it is the power play. Like it could always, be better. And, I guess, a lot of stats could be better until they're number one. But I think it definitely needs a change, and I think they're working on it. But they'll hopefully catch on eventually, and they got time during the regular season to kind of figure that out. And like we said, the forward depth is firing on all cylinders. Goaltending is among the best in the league. The defensive six on the back end are fantastic. And if they can get their power play going, because they get a lot of power play opportunities. If you're even scoring on 2% better on those power plays and converting on those, then you're going to be unstoppable. You're scoring 5 or 6 goals, a game on average. And, the way they've been playing defensively, it's like, you're going to win. You're going to win the rest of your games if you can improve on that. So, yeah, that's where I'm at with the power play. That's my 2 cents.
Thanks for the question, Ben. That was a good one, getting that in under the wire. Pretty much halfway through. Well, actually right at the beginning as we started recording the show in the first 15 or 20 minutes there. So thank you for that question. And yeah, Colorado, the Avalanche, 48 points in the Honda West division this year. It's been kind of a blessing that them and Minnesota and St. Louis kind of absorbed into the Pacific division a little bit. Amalgamation, if you will, with the American Pacific Division teams, because Vancouver and Calgary, of course, they're playing up in the Canadian division there. So the Scotiabank North Division.
Right. Yeah.
So
get those sponsorship.
Get those sponsorships right. Get that money. Yep. The Scotia North. There we go. All right. Well, hey, that is the end of the show. And yeah, episode 12 in the book. So thanks for tuning in to Front Range Hockey, everyone. Don't forget to follow our show on pretty well any major podcast platform: Google, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, you name it, iHeartRadio. We are on it. So check it out. Go subscribe. Give us some feedback. Give us a review, and please give our Twitter account a follow, as you can see from our handles scrolling down below, at Front RNG Hockey. Scott, I know we've mentioned it and we do it all the time. If people aren't familiar where to find your work, where can they find your work rather?
Well, mine is also kind of, not scrolling, but at Off Scott Free on Twitter. That's at 0FF Scott Free. At Off Scott Free was taken by a lawyer in some state. So honestly, that's actually like, he can have that. That's pretty funny. But
yeah, that works.
Anyway, yeah, follow me on Twitter there. You can find my work at coloradohockeynow.com. Posting there a few times a week, covering the Avalanche and sometimes the Eagles and sometimes, whatever else I feel like. So we're trying to bring you the best coverage you deserve, CC and I, and thanks for listening as always.
Absolutely. And if you haven't subscribed to Colorado Hockey Now, it is definitely worth the investment. So go check them out. Adrian Dater, longtime journalist covering the Colorado Avalanche since the beginning. So he heads up that operation, and Scott is definitely an integral part of that as well. So yeah, they're pretty much cohorts at this point. Dater headed it up, but man, Scott has taken on so much in the past year, and he's really, he's Pro Hockey Writers Association, Scott McDonald over there. So
all right, that'll be my first name. We're gonna go full circle. We just talked about all the first names, and I'm PHWA McDonald.
Yep.
Now, so.
PHWA McDonald. Yeah.
Changing that legally.
Yep. Legally changing that. Yeah. My co-host PHW. Yeah. That's going to be a mouthful.
Yeah.
Not going to do that.
Maybe
well,
not.
Hey, I'm CC Hawkley, and you can find my written work at Full Press Hockey. That's www.fullpresshockey.com. Check out this and a ton of other great hockey podcasts, plus other great sports pods on the Full Press Network, Full Press Radio Network, rather, at www.fullpresscoverage.com. They have a whole menu, or sub menu rather, dedicated to podcast, and there's so many good podcasts for Full Press Coverage. So go ahead and check them out. Guys, gals, and non-binary pals, thank you once again for tuning in. And as always, stay colorful, my friends. Take care.